Welcome to Please Me, the award-winning sexuality podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap, one empowering conversation at a time. Did you catch last week's bonus episode with Daniel Towson? We explored biohacking for sexual health and how optimizing the 5 key pillars of health, nutrition, sleep, movement, stress, and mindset can significantly improve both overall wellness and sexual performance. If you missed it, now's the perfect time to tune in and learn how to boost your sexual health through science-backed strategies. For the next few weeks, I'm sharing exclusive webinars I've hosted live on SDC.com, the top ethical non-monogamy dating platform and a leading source for alternative sex education. Sponsored by the Please Me Health Collective, these free monthly sessions explore sexual health, pleasure, empowerment, and biohacking for sexual wellness. Check the show notes for a free trial code and check out my next free webinar, A Gift from Me to You. Come join this transformative community. A huge thanks to everyone leaving reviews. Please Me continues to rank in the top 10 sexuality podcasts. Your support means everything. Keep the love coming by rating the show and join us on Patreon for ad-free episodes, bonus content, and early access. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter on Substack for more Please Me related news. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me. ASN Lifestyle Magazine is your go-to source for sex-positive, sophisticated content covering everything from the swinger lifestyle and adult entertainment to intimacy, wellness, and more. You can read every digital issue for free, and subscribers get access to exclusive content. See the show notes for the link to subscribe and check out their Instagram. I'm excited to share that I now have a monthly column in ASN called Big Clit Energy, a Please Me series. Don't miss it and subscribe today. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So I'm coming to you live from Wellington, Florida, which is where I'm located. And I know where you're listening from. So I say morning, but it might be nighttime for some of you guys. Right now it's 11 a.m. my time in Florida. And let me know where you're coming from. I would love to know. Welcome SDC listeners. And I am doing this recording on a couple of different cameras right now because I will have this episode available on Patreon as a webinar. And I am excited to be talking to you guys today. So thank you so much for joining me today. I just want to introduce myself briefly. My name is Eve Hall, and I am a licensed physical therapist, and I treat conditions of the pelvic floor. And I like to say that I'm a sexual health physical therapist. A lot of times pelvic floor therapists will say that they treat the pelvic floor, which I find very unsexy. So I like to say that I treat sexual health conditions, which I do. Things like incontinence, which is a very unsexy condition. However, it affects many, many women. Up to 50%, it's thought to affect 50% of women at some point in their lives. I treat things like erectile dysfunction. I treat things like decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness. I treat things like painful sex, etc. So those are the things that I treat in my physical therapy practice. And I also have a podcast called Please Me. And you can see some of the thumbnails behind me. And it is about 1.5 years old now. And it is doing fantastic. It is in the 3% globally for podcasts in the sexuality category. And so it is really growing by leaps and bounds. And I absolutely love doing these webinars to sort of highlight some of the things that I love talking about on the show. And one of those things is embracing big clit energy, the power of sexual confidence. So I just want to repeat the title of this webinar. It's called embracing Big Clit Energy, the power of sexual confidence. And I just love the concept of Big Clit Energy. And I'm just going to go into that just a little bit right now, because Big Clit Energy is basically the confidence that you have in your sexuality. And when you are confident in your sexuality, it really translates to all areas of your life, whether it be doing a webinar like I'm doing right now, or getting in front of an audience and speaking to them about any given topic, or speaking out in a meeting that you're having at work, etc. Having confidence is really transformational. It can really translate to all areas of your life, and I think that sexual confidence is so important to have in order to really be able to realize your full potential and your passions and your desires. So we're going to jump into it right now. And again, if you're listening to me on SDC, I want to know where you're coming from. So please, there's a chat box, and I will be checking it at the very end for any questions to answer for you. But let me know where you're coming from. I would love to hear where you guys are from. So we're going to start with why confidence matters. And, obviously confidence is so important for so many things. And, we want to create a non-judgmental space, right, for ourselves. And so it's not just about appearance. Appearance is one way that we can sort of put on a brave face, right? But it's not really just about appearance. It's about how we view ourselves internally, and also how we communicate with others, and how we're able to communicate our desires and our boundaries. So if we are not able to do that, it's going to hurt our confidence. So we really need to learn how to do that within our lives. And again, it will impact every area of your life, from personal relationships to your career, and also to your self-esteem. When you have confidence in yourself in the bedroom, it really does give a big boost to your self-esteem. So outside of the bedroom, we think about self-awareness, and we want to understand who we are beyond the societal expectations and beyond our appearance. So we want to practice mindfulness, and mindfulness really gets us in tune with the present moment, right? So I suggest that we start with positive affirmations every day. And, a lot of times people will say, create positive affirmations for yourself, and self-love affirmations that can really set the tone for the day. So, if you're out there and you have a positive affirmation that you tell yourself every day, I would love to hear what that is. So feel free to jump in and, type in some comments as we're going along here. Body positivity and loving your body is so important. And I love to say that I love my body at any size. And one thing that you can rely on, right, is that, the Father Time is going to change you. And no matter what, you are different from yesterday, and you will be different from tomorrow. So really embracing your body at any size is so important in order to have that self-confidence. And what we need to do is really think about those unrealistic beauty standards that, are constantly being rained down upon us, right? From society, from social media, etc. And really think about what's important to us, and what we love about ourselves. I like to think about body neutrality instead of thinking about body positivity all the time. Thinking about body neutrality as in, like, what can we focus on within our bodies to really love the function of our bodies, right? Because we often don't think about that unless we lose function. And I know, as a physical therapist, when I get clients that have lost some kind of function, like, for instance, the ability to walk or run, or even have sex because of an injury or a diagnosis, it can really affect our self-esteem and the way that we see ourselves in a positive light. So really embracing the things that we can do. For instance, I love to exercise and I love to go for walks, and I bring my weights and I do my workout. And I really love that my body can walk without pain. So thinking about things that are not necessarily sexy, right? But they are, giving us love for ourselves and the functions that we do have. And so that is super important, because as we, get older and we start losing function, we need to really focus on what we can do, not what we can't do. And so one of the episodes that I did on my podcast was an episode with Barb Nangle. She was a wonderful a guest that I had on my show. And the show was called Creating Healthy Sex Lives: From Codependence to Wellness. And she talks about a lot of her life and her experience with being codependent and being a people pleaser. And, when you're constantly trying to please other people, you're putting yourself last. So you need to be putting yourself first at all times. And that is so, so key. Another show that I had, and I'm going to bring that one up now too, is it was called Beyond the Boudoir, Empowering Self-Portraits with Melissa Ushenko. And boudoir photography, she uses it as a self-care practice. And, I had never really considered that. I always thought of it as, something that you maybe like give to your partner, or something that you share, right? Not necessarily for yourself. And I love that she used it sort of as a visual journal to help her to build her self-confidence, build her self-esteem, and to see herself in a new way. And I was, scrolling through social media one day, and I follow a few boudoir photographers, and I was listening to a little clip about a woman who had done a boudoir shoot. And, she had always had a really negative self-image of herself. And her husband would always rain compliments on her, saying that she was so hot and so beautiful and so gorgeous. And she never saw what he saw until she did a boudoir photography shoot with a photographer. And when she saw the pictures, she was blown away at her beauty that she never really saw outside of her, of herself. And so I encourage you to think about, doing some photography of yourself. It doesn't have to be a boudoir. It can be, regular photography, but, looking at yourself from different angles, different lights, using different lighting. Sometimes the sun can come in through a window and, there's blinds. So there's like an interesting pattern of light, and, using that moment in time to take some beautiful pictures of yourself, and then cropping them to really emphasize the parts of your body that you actually really love. This can really boost your self-esteem and your body confidence. So boudoir photography is an incredible, incredible tool that can be used to, boost your self-confidence. So we're going to keep talking about that, Shy, because, I have a whole hour's talk, right? So I'm just getting into it right now. All right. So we will ask questions, or I will answer questions at the very, very end, but we're going to keep talking. So body positivity and loving your body at any size. Oh, let me turn this off so it doesn't keep making noise, because my phone is constantly ringing. I don't know about you guys, but it gives me anxiety when I keep the ringer on. Okay, so we talked about that. Also, embrace being vulnerable, right? We can't always be perfect at every moment. And it's okay to be vulnerable, especially with somebody who, you know, you care about, with your partner or partners, right? We're here on SDC, so we may have multiple. It's really important to allow yourself that vulnerability. And so that's super important. And so the next thing that I want to talk about is releasing shame. And a lot of times, you know, shame can hold us back from being vulnerable. So practice self-compassion. One of the things that you can do to kind of rid yourself of shame is write down all of your insecurities. Okay, write them all down, everything that you're insecure about, right? And then when you're finished doing that, I want you to rewrite them in a very loving and accepting way of yourself. So what you're doing is you're recreating that mental, you know, thought pattern of negativity and changing it and reforming it to be a positive, um, you know, self-talk. So we got to think about how we can change that narrative for ourselves, from that negative self-talk to that positive self-talk. So just putting my notes up here. Excuse me. And so now we're gonna talk about embracing your confidence in the bedroom. So we were kind of talking about out of the bedroom, and now we're going to talk about how to embrace your confidence in the bedroom. And sexual confidence is so important, and it starts with self-love, and it starts with self-acceptance, which is what we had been kind of talking about before, and also shedding shame. So one of the things that you can do is explore your body, right? And self-pleasure. And what I mean by self-pleasure is masturbate, right? But I like to think about the body, the entire body, as being an erogenous zone, okay? Not just the genitalia is an erogenous zone. Your entire body can be perceived in your brain as an erogenous zone. So thinking about exploring your body in ways that you haven't before. So yes, I love a good sex toy. I love a good vibrator. Absolutely. Explore your body in that way too. But maybe think about trying something new, trying something different that you haven't done before, exploring with maybe ice, or exploring with maybe feathers, or exploring with some other form of you know, sensory play, where you can really sort of tune into your body. And this is really something that we're doing on our own. And yes, you can absolutely do this with a partner too. But when you are able to really hone your skills and make yourself feel good without anybody else there, right? You're going to be able to take that information and bring that information to the bedroom. And so self-play and self-pleasure and masturbation is so important for men and for women. Okay. And I know that today I'm talking to the ladies because we're talking about Big Clit Energy, right? But this is absolutely the same thing with Big Dick Energy, right? You should know exactly what feels good so that you can direct your partner in the bedroom. And that leads us to communicating in the bedroom. And, you know, a lot of times people feel very much, I don't know, they like sort of expect that their partner is going to know exactly what to do, right? We sort of have this assumption that our partner's going to know what they're supposed to do, and we just have to lay back and, you know, enjoy it. That's not the case. Every single person is different, and your partner may be wonderful at exploring and at connecting with you, but maybe it's not hitting the exact right spot, and you don't know how to translate that information to communicate with your partner. So I encourage you to be bold in your conversations, and to really break the taboo and to normalize the conversations about sex, about our bodies, about our desires. and create a very a space with your partner where no subject is off limits. And I know it's easier said than done, but with practice, this can be done. And so one thing that I would encourage you to do is to maybe role play. Role playing is kind of fun. In fact, in season 4 of the Please Me podcast, I have done a role play at the very end of almost every single episode with my guests, which has been super fun. We've done role plays about all sorts of different things. And it's a really great way to sort of talk through things and to build that confidence and that courage that you may not normally have when you're playing yourself, right? You're playing somebody else. And so now you're somehow able to say the things that were sort of stuck inside of you before, right? So role play is a really, really great way to express needs. Let me just have some coffee here. Not that I need a second cup, but I am drinking a second cup right now. So shifting the narrative and focusing instead of on performing, right? Instead of thinking about, oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm not sure if I know how to do that, and you're focused on performing, I want you to focus on pleasure. Focus on how you're feeling. Focus on your body. Focus on your nervous system and the sensations of your skin. And another thing that you can do as your partner and you are exploring is to really vocalize and verbalize the spots that you love. Okay. But because what you want to do is you really want to train your partner, teach your partner what pleasures you. And for the most part, I think that our partners want to pleasure us, right? And if they don't, maybe you need to consider getting a new partner, right? But really having a focus on pleasure instead of performance is going to really help. And also focusing on the connection that you're making with your partner. So eye gazing is a really great way to connect. You can do breathing together, okay? Trying to get your breath in line with your partners. That's another really beautiful way to connect with your partner. And those conversations that we often feel are taboo really need to be erased, from our thought process. And the shame and the fear around discussing these topics has to be sort of erased. And we need to really try to embrace these conversations, because when we think about sex, right, the bedroom is our adults' playground. It is where we play, where we, explore, where we try new things. And so in order to really fully enjoy that aspect of your life, throwing that shame away and embracing, creativity and curiosity is so key. We talked about creating safe spaces and bold conversations. I want to bring in an example of one of the episodes that I did with Jake Dudinsky, and the episode was titled "Embracing Identity and Kink: Puppy Play, Furry Play, and Lobo Parties." And if any of you watched that episode, it was a really great episode. I had Jake on the show, and he was such an interesting person. He actually has a diagnosis of autism. And so, for him, it was really, really important to be able to communicate with his partners certain aspects of his diagnosis that made him feel a little uncomfortable in the bedroom. But he had to really, have these conversations with his partners so that he would feel comfortable and safe. And so creating safe spaces is so, so important when you're in any kind of play situation, whether it be one-on-one with someone or in, a group setting, etc. Really feeling safe is going to allow us to really be able to hone that confidence and really enjoy ourselves. So I encourage you to listen to that episode. And actually, my current episode right now that just came out this morning on Patreon is an episode with somebody who has 8 invisible disabilities. And she talks about those disabilities and how they've affected her her sex life. And one of those things is ADHD. And, a lot of times we all, a lot of us have ADHD, right? I know I do. I'm like all over the place all the time. I'm always doing like 5 things at once. And it makes me very efficient and sometimes very inefficient, depending on what I'm trying to do. But she talks about these invisible disabilities, and sometimes what you see is not necessarily what you get, right? So, when you have an invisibility, sometimes you don't, the other person may not even realize that that's the case. So being able to really express yourself and being able to, talk about these things and releasing the shame around any kind of disability or dysfunction or etc., is so important to really be able to fully hone your sexual pleasure. And then, of course, humor is always something that is helpful in any situation to kind of diffuse the awkwardness and to get a giggle. And of course, laughing releases those feel-good chemicals. And those feel-good chemicals are the same chemicals that are released when you have an orgasm. And speaking of orgasms, I want to just jump in here real quick and talk about the orgasm gap, because the orgasm gap is one of those things that, I think everybody needs to know about. And a lot of times people kind of know of it, but they don't actually realize that it's a thing, right? So the orgasm gap is a phenomenon where in heterosexual relationships, men have more orgasms than women do. And that goes across the board from hookups all the way to marriage and every other relationship in between. And the reason for this, and this is why I love talking about this particular topic of embracing Big Clit Energy and the power of sexual confidence, is because, we need to have that sexual confidence in order to close that orgasm gap for ourselves. And so, instead of putting the onus on your partner to give you an orgasm, right? You need to hone the skills, learn your body, and be able to really help your partner to get you there, okay? By teaching them what you like. And so that is so important. And I think a lot of people don't think about it, but sexual confidence is really determined a lot by, ourselves, and individually how we see ourselves and how we are able to hone the skills to have an orgasm on our own, and then to share that information with our partners. And so don't be afraid of toys. Sometimes our partners will, be a little intimidated by the vibrator initially, right? But really encourage them to know that that is their best friend, right? It's, it's a joint effort. And so there's never any negativity and around bringing in toys, and also bringing in, and I know that this is on my list somewhere to talk about, and I'm just going to jump right in and talk about it now. Bringing in things that make you comfortable, right? So maybe it's pillows. Maybe it's a throw over your bed to make sure that if you, squirt and you make a mess, you're not feeling self-conscious about it. You're feeling like, oh my God, that was amazing, instead of, oh my God, I just ruined my sheets or whatever, So thinking about, how can you make your environment really, really a place where you can create a pleasurable experience. And so thinking about all of the sensory things like the lighting, the smells, the surface, the pillows. Do you like wedges? There's liberator throws or liberator pillows, liberator furniture that you can get. And I have a lot of all of these things on my website, pleaseme.online. I have a really beautifully curated store of sex toys, lubes, and more on there. And you can find a lot of these sort of accoutrements for the bedroom on my store to really create this beautiful space of where you can really get comfortable and really celebrate pleasure. Excuse me, my throat is tickling here. Okay, so we talked a little bit about common confidence blocks like perfectionism and like self-doubt. And we talked about being vulnerable, right? And that's going to help us to be able to communicate with our partners more deeply and more intimately. And when we're able to have those conversations, that's really going to build our confidence and our big clit energy. So I want you to think about celebrating progress over perfection. So don't worry about the perfection. We need to throw out the window and embrace our imperfections, right? What are those things that maybe you feel self-conscious about? Embrace those imperfections, right? Because nobody's perfect. We all can use, help in one arena or another. And so really embracing those imperfections is important to really loving yourself fully. And then rewriting this negative self-talk. So we talked about that before, but really, writing down those negative things that you say to yourself. And sometimes we are our biggest bullies, right? And sometimes it just comes out of the blue and we don't even realize that we're doing it. But we're bullying ourselves. So when we find ourselves bullying ourselves, taking those thoughts, writing them down, and then rewriting them in a positive light. This is going to really help to get rid of those confidence blocks that sometimes we have internalized that we don't even realize are there. So what are some of the things that you might say that that negatively impact you in the bedroom? So maybe something like, I'm terrible in bed because I don't know how to XYZ, right? XYZ, what would be something that you might say that you are not comfortable with, right? So reframing that and thinking of why you deserve love. And so thinking about it in that way. Sometimes you can even use voice recording when you're starting to get into that pattern of negative self-talk, to really voice record yourself. Record what you're saying to yourself, okay? And then listen back to it. Listen to that negative self-talk and think about how you're talking to yourself, how you're bullying yourself. And then you want to really rewrite that in a way that's more empowering. I interviewed, it was actually my Christmas episode, a woman called Danielle Bezalel. And I actually don't have the name of the episode right here, but it was on Christmas Day. It came out. Danielle Bezalel was her name. And she has a podcast that talks about romantic comedies and romantic comedies of the 80s and 90s. And, a lot of them have a lot of negative anti-feminists, patterning or a societal constructs in there that she listens to with a guest, and then they sort of break it down. And so a lot of that patterning, right? All of those societal norms, all of the things that our families taught us about sexuality, all of the shame that was put on us growing up, sometimes that's really internalized and you don't realize it. So it's really good to sort of pick it apart. And when you can pick it apart, you can rewrite it in your own way. And so that's exactly what she does with these romantic comedies. She listens to them with a guest. She sort of picks them apart, and then she rewrites them, like just verbally at the end of the show, about how it could have been a better message, right? And so we can do that with our lives too. And I think that that is really such a cool example of a way that somebody's doing it on a podcast. So, my podcast covers all sorts of issues related to sexuality and sexual health. This particular one, she does about romantic comedies, and I think it's genius. It's a great idea. So let's talk about sexual health now and performance concerns, because before we were sort of talking about the negative self-talk that we have about maybe our performance and that we're worried about. But now I want to talk about actual performance concerns, such as erectile dysfunction, or the female equivalent, right, which would be decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness. And that those two things, even though they seem different, are actually hand in hand. They go together. So erectile dysfunction is caused by the exact same thing as decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness. And this is how. So, blood flow is what makes the penis get big, right? But blood flow is also what makes the clitoris get engorged. And the clitoris must be engorged in order to really enjoy sex and to be prepared for penetration. So for women, it takes 20 to 25 minutes to get to that point where, you're ready for penetration. So really slowing down and really focusing on pleasuring and using the entire body as an erogenous zone instead of only focusing on the genitalia, that's going to make a huge difference in getting that juiciness going, right? And so when our bodies, as our bodies get older, for men, some men in their 20s have some form of erection, and it goes up 10% per decade. So 30% in their 30s, 40% in their 40s, 50% in their 50s, etc. Right? And so the same goes for women. And a lot of times that has a lot to do with our nutrition and what we're putting into our bodies. And when our blood vessels get blocked, okay, they decrease, the blood flow decreases. And so it's really important to open up those blood vessels in order to really get that blood flowing. And so, for men, they have, the magical blue pill, right? And, the magical blue pill works for a time, but if those blockages get so clogged that blood can no longer flow, that's when you have severe erectile dysfunction. So really thinking about the small changes that your body is making and trying to mitigate those problems as they're happening instead of waiting until it becomes so severe that it's harder to kind of turn back time, right? And so for women, estrogen is so important because estrogen is one of the links in, say your skin is a link fence, right? And estrogen is one of those links. So you have, your skin at cells, and then several, throughout those cells, you have estrogen receptors. And if you don't have enough estrogen, those receptors are going to be empty. And so that causes the skin to be more delicate. It can tear more easily, which can cause painful sex. And generally, you have less lubrication as well. And that's caused by another thing, which I'm going to get into in just a minute. But estrogen, having enough estrogen to fill those links in that skin, the fence, is going to help your skin to be more healthy. And it's going to help your body to be more ready for sexual encounters. So that's one thing. Another thing is when we were talking about the erectile dysfunction and its female equivalent, which is the decreased sensitivity and dryness. The dryness comes from lack of blood flow. What happens when blood flows to the vagina and the clitoris and, all of that area down there is that when the blood flows to that area, the plasma of the blood seeps through the walls of the vagina and clitoris and vulva, and it lubricates. And so if you're not having enough blood flow, you're not going to have enough plasma to lubricate the area. So blood flow is essential. So, like I mentioned before, I'm a licensed physical therapist and I treat sexual health conditions. And so there is a treatment called acoustic wave therapy, which is a non-invasive treatment that I actually do in my practice. And basically what it does is it helps unblock the blockages in the blood vessels that you have going to the genitalia and on the genitalia, so that you can really allow for that blood flow to continue to flow, during sex and when you're not, and when you think about men, right, and their ups and downs of erections, right? When you're in your teens, you wake up with a woody every day, right? You wake up with that morning wood, and that is normal function. And oftentimes, the wind will blow and you'll get a hard on, and that is normal function. And oftentimes over time, those natural functions start to diminish, and people don't really realize it until you come to the point where you are sexually stimulated mentally, but it's not happening down there, right? And so before you get to that point, it's so important to start taking care of our health. And same goes with women. If you start to experience some decreased sensitivity, it's really important to really try to increase that sensitivity. One of the things that I love to use is a product called Bonnie's Botanicals, and there's two different products that Bonnie's has. One of them is called Boudoir Butter, and the other one is called Sex Butter. And the Boudoir Butter is really good for just like everyday natural lubrication that you can use if you have a lot of dryness. The Sex Butter has a little bit of peppermint in it, and it really helps with increasing that sensitivity. So if you have experienced decreased sensitivity, I would try Bonnie's Botanicals. It's an amazing product. You can find all of the links to all of these things that I'm talking about on pleaseme.online, which is my website. But it's a really, really great product. And I actually interviewed for one of my shows, Bonnie and Bonnie. There's two Bonnies. One of them created the product and the other one bought it from the other. And they're an interesting team. And the show that I did with them was called Overcoming Vaginal Dryness, a deep dive into natural solutions. And what I love about these products too is that they're all natural and they're completely safe to put on your body. And that is so important, especially with all of the toxicity that exists in our life and in our world today. So I have been going for quite a while now, and I just want to open up the floor to some questions and to really have a little Q&A with you guys. So let me just take a little break here, and I'm going to read some of these amazing messages that I'm getting here. Thank you, 24. I'm happy that you're here today. And yes, my podcast, you guys need to listen to it. I gave you so many different ones that I think would be relevant to today's topic, but absolutely go to spotify.com and you can view or listen on Spotify. And right now, that's the only place that you can view or listen to the episodes weekly, except if you want to purchase a membership, which I encourage you to do. This is, the way that we're able to sort of keep giving you this information. And I have a Patreon account, which offers ad-free listening, early release episodes, which today is the early release episode for this week's show. The episodes come out on Wednesdays, but I do an early release on Mondays, and it's ad-free. And I have all of my previous webinars on there, and some, bonus episodes, etc. So it's a really great place to listen to the show. So definitely check the show out. And so let me just go back here. Thank you here for fun. Yes, it definitely increases endorphins. And think about an orgasm, right? When you have an orgasm, you are releasing all of those neurotransmitters, the serotonin, the epinephrine, all of the things that make you feel good, right? And, laughing does that too. But orgasms are really like the most direct way to really get that feel good going, right? And so I had another woman on, Davita Arnold, and she talked about how she wakes up every day and she masturbates first thing in the morning, and that gives her just like a boost of like feel good chemicals in her body to start the day. And I think that that was such a great tip, because oftentimes we like jump out of bed and like go jump in the shower and like start our day without really considering, making ourselves feel better from the inside out from the jump. So that is a really great tool that I challenge you to try. Maybe do a 1 week masturbation, morning masturbation, and see how that really can affect your confidence and also just your energy for the day, right? Oh wow, somebody wrote in, is that German? I'm not going to be able to read that unless you can translate it. But I so appreciate all of the words that you said. Um, so somebody is asking me about pictures, and yeah, pictures are so important on SDC because obviously you're trying to meet other people that you can have fun with, right? So I definitely can coach you guys. I do virtual coaching, so I would be happy to help you with that. Absolutely. Hold on, I'm going back here. Yes, a feather duster from the dollar store. Sometimes it's like the most basic stuff that don't even need to even do much to go anywhere for, right? Toy handcuffs, or you can just grab like your husband's old tie or your boyfriend's old tie. And typically ties are silk, so they're soft and they're like a perfect way to, experiment with some bondage. So I hope you can hear me now, Jay, because it seems like everybody else is not having issues with the sound. So check your computer. Okay, so someone's asking about best areas to focus on with oral sex, right? And I love talking about oral sex. The clitoris is the man's equivalent of the penis, and the clitoris has a lot of nerve endings. Sometimes women are very sensitive and don't like to be touched directly on their clitoris. It's so sensitive. But think about the clitoris as being much bigger than the small little nub that you see outside, right? Because the clitoris is actually an extensive organ, and it goes internally as well as external. So there's legs to it, there's bulbs to it, there's a part that goes around the vaginal opening. So the vaginal opening at the beginning, at the top, is kind of surrounded by the clitoris. So explore the whole clitoris, not just that little nub, right? And so I suggest that you explore, and then you ask your partner, how does that feel? Because for some people, they have like a very specific spot, and you won't really know that unless you ask, right? Unless you have these really bold conversations. So throw away that shame, throw away the embarrassment, and really ask your partner and try to get some answers from them to really know exactly where they like to be licked. Okay, because every single person is going to be a little bit different. Okay. But one thing that I did see, and I follow this person on social media, and I'm trying to remember what his name is, but he does a lot of training on how to help a woman orgasm and like really honing your sexuality and all of that. And he talked about thinking about the clitoris as sort of like a penis. And you know how you would, you know, you would give fellatio, right? And give a man oral sex, right? And you would go like up and down with your mouth. So think about the clitoris being that same little penis, right? And you go up and down with your mouth over the clitoris repetitively. So try that. It may be super sensitive for some people, but it may be just right for others. So try all sorts of things and ask questions. Be curious, because that is really how you're going to be able to get your partner to open up and to tell you exactly what they want. Okay. So I'm going back here. Hold on. Cream pie is good for dryness. I think you're talking about like a man coming on a woman, and if you're having sex and you're not using a condom with a partner that you obviously trust and have had conversations with about not using protection, yes, of course, it can increase some lubrication. But oftentimes after that happens, the man is not really ready anymore. Um, so, we want to prolong that as much as we can. And so, I do another talk about how to get big dick energy. And we talk about edging and how to learn how to hold your orgasm for longer so that you can you can be available for more pleasure for your partner. Okay. And so, okay, hold on. I'm going back here. Sorry. Too much alcohol. Yes, ED can be caused by too much alcohol. It's funny how you say whiskey dick. I actually met somebody who needed tequila to stay hard and to not have an orgasm too fast. So some people use it in the opposite way. It really just depends, but yes, absolutely. Alcohol is not your friend if you're drinking too much when you're playing. And also when you're talking about consent, right? You cannot consent if you're drunk. So, if your partner is drunk and you're at a play party and it's time to walk away, it's time to pack it up, because you need to be in your right mind to be able to consent. Hold on. I'm going back. Okay. So intimate, that's excellent that you're having that morning wood. That is a natural thing for men. Men should have that every day. If you're not, you might consider getting some erectile dysfunction treatments. Even though you may be performing well, that could be a sign that you're starting to have, mild symptoms of erectile dysfunction. And it's always best to treat any condition when it's in its early forms instead of waiting until it becomes severe. Yes. So we talked about the clitoris and the anatomy of it and how big it is. It's almost the size of a penis, believe it or not. You think it's so small, but it's really not. Yes, it's internal. Yes. Got to move those hips, right? See, that's what I said about alcohol making you last longer. Some people, it helps them to last longer. So, everybody's different. Okay. So, and I'm glad that you bring that up, Magic, because, you know, sexuality and sex, it's so much more than just penetration, right? And oftentimes what we see in movies and we see in shows is always like penetrative sex, and that is how a man orgasms. That is not necessarily how a woman orgasms. Women, 95% of women need external clitoral stimulation in order to orgasm. Only 3 to 5% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. So it's very, very common for women to not have an orgasm if what's being focused on is penetration. So thinking again about the whole body as being an erogenous zone, and thinking about the clitoris as being a whole organ and not just that little nub you see on the outside, and really exploring the whole body is going to really help to, get your partner to have mind-blowing orgasms, which is what we all want, right? Yes. And squirting is one of those things that, like, if you've never done it, you don't really know if you can or not, right? But then once it happens, you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And I didn't even know I could do that. But then you can do it all the time. But, it does really take a very specific type of stimulation in order to squirt. And so some people are really good at making that happen, and sometimes you just need to learn what those skills are. And so, I think fingers work the best, and fast in and out works really well. So, maybe playing around with that and seeing if you can get your partner to squirt. And I suggest that you get a liberator throw, because those throws absorb everything and you don't have to worry about making a mess in the bedroom. So get yourself a liberator throw. And again, if you go to pleaseme.online, I have a great curated list of all sorts of sex toys, and I have liberator throws in there, and they're amazing. Definitely recommend you getting a sex blanket. So, of course, mindset has a lot to do with erectile function. And, for women too, right? We're talking about big clit energy here. And so, mindset is so important, which is why this topic is so important for us to hone. That confidence in the bedroom is a skill. It's a skill just like any other. And it takes really some thought and some time to really hone those skills so that you can really fully enjoy your sex life to the most. I'm starting to get some fun, uh, you know, confessions over here on SDC.com. And that's always a lot of fun. And I love that people are really open and honest about talking about these things here in a no judgment zone. And, when you come see me in my practice, or if you do coaching with me one-on-one, or if you come see me in my office for treatments for decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness, or treatments for erectile dysfunction, or treatments for painful sex. Again, I always create a non-judgment zone. It's so important to really feel comfortable with the person that you're working with, so that you can really get better in any of the ways that you want to get better. And I do also do intimacy coaching, so I want to just put that out there as well, for couples and singles. And it's a great way to really take that sex life to the next level. Sometimes it's really helpful to talk to somebody about how you can sort of build on what you have already. And so if you're with somebody, there's already like a wonderful foundation, and you just have to build and build to make that even more amazing. So I strongly suggest that you reach out to me outside of this webinar if you're interested in any of those things. And we can chat more and see if I can help you. Yes. And so prostate pleasure is one of those things that I talk about when I talk about how to get big dick energy. And so if you go to, let's see, pleaseme.online, and you go to my webinars, we'll find that one there, because that's one of my older webinars, how to get big dick energy. And that one is free on my website, pleaseme.online. So TNT, you should reach out to me, because I would be happy to help you with helping you to get some tips and tricks to really help your wife to, get what she needs. And there's so many things that you can do to really help your wife to get her needs met, and also for yourself. And I guess one thing that just is coming to mind right now is a strap on or toys. Why not, get the things that really help her to get there? And so it's interesting that she doesn't like oral, but does she like rubbing? So that would be things that we would talk about together, and really kind of tease out what we could do to sort of help her to get to the place where she is feeling sexually satisfied. Okay, so I just want to end here with saying that, confidence and big clit energy is not something that you're just born with, right? It's something that you can grow and you can learn and you can reclaim. And so, embracing that in yourself is going to give you your full power. And so I encourage you to, try and figure out what those things are that can really get you to the place where you feel like you have fully embraced your sexuality and you're exuding that big clit energy, because that really is going to transform your life in so many different ways. So again, it's been wonderful to be with you guys today. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. Again, my name is Eve, and I am the host of Please Me podcast. You can find the podcast on Spotify, which is where you can see the video and audio, and then all other platforms. You can find me to listen: Apple, Listen Notes, iHeartRadio, and there's like 20 or 30 other sites that you can find my show on. I also do post on YouTube some shorter form content, and so you can find me there. And of course, Patreon, if you want to become a member, a monthly member, it's only $10. I think it's $9.99 per month, and you get ad-free listening, you get bonus episodes, and you get my webinars. And so it's really a great place to go and kind of explore. And so, yeah, and a great place to explore with your partner, listen to a show with them. If you want to bring up a conversation, maybe one show really triggers something that you want to talk to with your partner about. And so listening together is a really great way to kind of break the ice as well. So again, thank you guys all for being here today, and you guys have a fantastic day. So Shorty Paula, you have to reach out to me because I would be happy to help you. Okay. And so the female, male question, again, reach out to me. You can send me a message, and we can figure out when we can talk. All right. So again, thanks so much, you guys. Until next time. Bye-bye. And I do these webinars once a month on SDC. So be looking out for me again. For ad-free listening, exclusive bonus episodes, Eve's library of archived webinars, and early access to new releases of Please Me, become a monthly supporter on Patreon. Simply open the Patreon app on your phone, search for Please Me, and subscribe today for premium content and more. Cheers to finding your pleasure and big clit energy.